You save money and invest for years, but then what? How do you prepare for retirement? Mark Young is the author of a tool to help you out.
Fellow investors, bonjour. This is Mike Leroux, founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks and passionate investor. You're listening to the Dividend Guy Blog podcast, where I and my co-host Veronique will help you invest with more conviction so you can enjoy your retirement.
Dividend growth investors, bonjour, Vero here, and you're listening to the Dividend Guy Blog podcast. Today, we welcome Mark Young, a former software engineer who leveraged his expertise to help Canadians with their retirement planning. He is the author of the Retirement Loop Projection Tool, a powerful spreadsheet designed to optimize and simplify your retirement, and I'm so happy to have him with us today. But before we start, quick disclaimer, Mark is not a financial advisor and you should not take his thoughts and ideas as such. Retirement planning is not a one-size-fits-all solution, so please do your due diligence. Mark, thank you so much for being here. We have discussed by email a few times and I have seen you over at Retirement Loop, but this is actually the first time that we meet. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. And thanks, Vero, for having me on the podcast. I'm looking forward to this talk.
Yes, I think that listeners will get so much value from that. And I'm very happy that they finally get to meet you because, listeners, Mark is such a nice guy. I just like him so much. Okay, so for those who don't know you, how would you describe yourself?
Lots of labels, right? I'm an early retiree. I retired at age 50 from a career in software development and project management. I'm a small company guy. I've always worked for small companies throughout my whole career, but that means I've had to roll my own pension. And I think that's becoming more common for people these days. And I'm a bit, actually maybe more than a bit of a numbers geek.
Quite the opposite of me, right? So, Mark, you're retired. So what did you find the most challenging about retirement?
Well, especially when you're rolling your own pension, I think the hardest thing is to switch from a saving mindset to a spending mindset. I'm still dealing with that. And actually, the tool that I built is one thing that helps me with those decisions, but it is still a big mental switch.
Right.
Starting to spend those dollars that you've saved so hard to save up.
And like you've said, it's pretty much common among members at retirement from what we've seen so far, actually. Most of them have trouble like spending. Now, how did the idea of a retirement projection spreadsheet come?
Well, I've had a spreadsheet of one form or another since I was 36. And can you believe I was thinking about retirement already at age 36?
That's early.
Yeah, but the spreadsheet helped me make my retirement decision at age 50. And after that, I had some questions. There are options available to you, like when do you take CPP? When do you take OAS? And then I had a few different investment accounts that I knew would be drawn down over time, but I wasn't sure in what order and how much to take from each of those. So I built some logic into the spreadsheet to handle those conditions. And when I completed the first revision, I thought it might be a tool that might be useful to others. And so I ran a trial that generated a lot of interest, and here we are today.
Right. So members of Retirement Loop have access to your spreadsheet in their subscriptions. You can join, listeners, our waitlist at retirementloop.ca/waitlist. Enter your name and email to know when we will reopen the doors and get our 20 income-focused products review. In the meantime, Mark, is the spreadsheet beneficial for all types of investors?
Certainly for hands-on investors, yes. I would say that it's targeted really at hands-on investors. It doesn't support the guaranteed income supplement, so it might not be an appropriate product for those with limited means. And, the ultra wealthy have others manage their finances anyway, so that wouldn't be useful to them. But certainly it's proving to be a hit with the membership at Retirement Loop.
And investors need to use Excel to get the spreadsheet working. But I'll be honest with you, Mark, I just hate Excel. Every time I need to use it, I'm like, oh, damn. I understand nothing about formulas. I have no interest in becoming an expert in spreadsheets. So how did you make it easy for people like me?
Well, first, I chose Microsoft Excel for two reasons. And the first reason is that unlike a web application where you find most of these projection tools, your data is totally private, and remains under your control. So you're not putting it up on the web. And secondly, Excel is a really easy platform to develop on. And so I knew we'd be able to add new features very quickly. To make it easy to use, I've locked down the spreadsheet, and it really works more like a forms-based application. Think about something like personal income tax preparation software, where you just enter a number of fields, and there's no Excel formulas or programming required. So once you get past that initial mental hurdle of I'm using Excel, it is quite easy to use.
Yes. And by the way, listeners, like when we started thinking about having the spreadsheet, Mark's spreadsheet at Retirement Loop, Mike sent it to me and he said, look at it and let me know what you think, because if you can use it, if you feel like you can use it, everybody can do it, right? And this is what I did. I opened it and I was like, oh my God, this is pretty easy to use after all. So if I can do it, you can. Again, just to make sure that you got the link, retirementloop.ca/waitlist. All right, let's move on to preparing for retirement, because I want listeners to get as much value as possible. There are steps to take before even opening a projection tool. One needs to know their retirement goals, right?
Yes, for sure. But I would say even before that, you need to understand your expenses. And if you're not doing it already, start tracking your expenses a year or two before retirement so that you have a good handle on them. And then you can think about your retirement goals, lifestyle issues like where you want to live, what you're going to do for vacations, how much money you can spend, and how much you want to give to your children or grandchildren or even to charity while you live or through your estate.
And Mark, I'm just curious here. I'd like to add a question if you feel okay with that.
For sure.
You retired pretty early. What idea, like what were your goals back then and how did it evolve over time?
For me, the small company that I was working for ran into financial difficulties and they had to lay the whole staff off. And in the meantime, programming had changed. All applications had moved to the web off the desktop. And the desktop was where my experience was. So I knew I'd have to go back to school. Software development is also a very, very demanding field and requires a lot of time. And I knew that time would come at the expense of my family. So when I looked at the numbers, I said, let's do this, and was able to make that happen.
And did you and your spouse retire at the same time?
Yes, we did, actually.
Wow.
My wife has supported me all through my career. So she's been mostly at home. She's worked from home. But when the opportunity came, we said, let's do it. And we've been able to do some wonderful trips, a number of other activities together since then. So we're fortunate to be able to do that.
Amazing. Okay, so just going back, we talked about retirement goals. Then if you pay a one-time fee of like 2,000, maybe even more to get a retirement plan with a financial advisor, you will need to provide your numbers. So the same goes for the projection sheet. What numbers do we have to know?
Yes. So like I said before, you need to have a good handle on your expenses. And then you need to look ahead to your sources of income. Where are they going to come from? Most Canadians would get CPP and OAS, but there may be some other workplace pensions that you might have. And then you need to know the balances for your investment accounts, including an idea of expected rates of return for those accounts. I would also add, since we're talking about having a retirement plan done for you, when you do that, you get back typically a printed report with a few fixed scenarios. And so when your life circumstances change or your investments don't perform as expected, that can be either on the good or the bad side, then your plan is outdated. And you need to pay to have another plan prepared. And so I built the spreadsheet so you can make changes to your plan and see the results right away. That was very important.
Right. That's a good point. Hey, dividend growth investors. This is Vero. Mike is currently taking a sip of water, which gives us 10 seconds. And I literally mean 10 seconds to grow the podcast together. Go on Spotify or Apple Podcast, hit pause, and then under our logo, you'll see two very interesting buttons. One to subscribe, hit that subscribe button now. And then give us a 5-star rating. Our goal is to help more investors just like you. So please spread the love. Thank you. But Mark, there must be a difference in how detailed our goals and numbers are depending on how close we are to retirement. Like, for example, I'm in my 40s, but unlike you, I don't want to get retired yet. I plan on continue working for many years, so my goals and numbers are still like a bit blurry. How will I use a spreadsheet versus someone retiring in 2-3 years?
Yes, so the longer the projection is, the more uncertainty there is. And the spreadsheet will project out for 50 years. And I like to tell people, well, let's think back 50 years.
Mm.
1975, the average house price was $30,000. Since then, we've had cell phones, internet, email. We've had a couple of financial crises. There's been a lot of change between 1975.
Right.
And looking ahead, we've got artificial intelligence coming on the scene. We've got political instability. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that the next 50 years will see more change than we saw in the last 50 years. So
Yeah,
all that to
for
say
sure.
is that there is uncertainty in a projection, and of course the longer you run it, the more uncertainty there is. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't start planning early. The spreadsheet can show you a good balance of RSP contributions in addition to withdrawals from your accounts. So you can start that planning early, and by the time you actually hit retirement, you'll be a retirement pro.
Right. And I'd like to add something about the uncertainty part that you've mentioned, because some people don't feel comfortable with that, to have like approximations and not necessarily like very, very specific results. How would you tell them to deal with that part?
Well, the reality is that you can never hit 100% certainty. But I say to people, especially people who lived through the 70s to today, you made it this far. We've had lots of societal change, lots of things going on there. Your personal circumstances have probably changed quite a bit. And you adapted. So I think
Right.
flexibility is also a very key point of moving forward. The
So true.
projection is our best guess today, and we'll have a new best guess a year from now. But it's important to look ahead and make those guesses so we can do some
Mhm.
reasonable planning in them.
Okay, so we have our goals, we have our numbers. Now is the time to test things out with the spreadsheet. Concretely, how can such a tool help Canadians with their retirement?
So many people don't know that they can take CPP before age 65 at a reduced rate or take it later up to age 70 at an increased rate. And
Mhm.
similarly, you can delay OAS and receive more. And all of those have cash flow and tax implications. And the spreadsheet shows the effect of those decisions on your cash flow and estate, and ultimately show you how they affect your retirement goals. And it can also help you plan the drawdown of your investment accounts in order to optimize taxes and preserve your estate. So, we know that drawing funds out of a TFSA has a different tax implication than drawing funds out of an RSP, for example. How do we get that balance right to get the most out of our finances during retirement? And then, as I
Right.
said before, the spreadsheet can show you what is possible to spend or to give throughout your retirement.
And by the way, just a mention, I kept on referring to Canadians because the spreadsheet is made for Canada, just because tax rules are so much different from a country to another. So this is why I needed to mention it. But of course, there are projection tools probably available like pretty much anywhere in the world. So the keys that we're giving you today are applicable for other countries as well. How should listeners plan the extras like traveling, new cars, etc.?
Well, one of the nice thing about the projection tools, it allows users to enter one-time expenses and also
Mhm.
one-time income like cash gifts or maybe inheritances. So those should factor into your plan as well.
And what about like downsizing or moving to a senior home?
Yeah, so this is a reality for some people, for most people actually, at some point in their lives. And the
Mhm.
spreadsheet allows for two downsize, or they can even be upsize events. And a downsize or upsize event can involve your budget and or your principal residence. So typically think about, once the kids are grown and gone, you find yourself in a big house. That's the situation my wife
Mhm.
are in right now. We're attempting to sell because we want to downsize into something that fits us a bit better. And then perhaps, when we hit our 80s, we'll want to move into a rental where we don't have any lawn care, any outside work to do, or even maybe a senior's home at that point.
Right. So, Mark, you've said it. You are mostly retired because you're here today. So, you're working for fun and on things you enjoy. So, you, of course, use your tool to get ready for retirement, what's one thing that this tool made you realize?
You mentioned working, Vero. I also do a lot of volunteer work, which
Nice.
I really enjoy. But that gets into passion and purpose, which are two very important things in retirement. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'll have to talk about those on another show. But the one thing the tool made me realize was that I needed to draw down mine and my wife's RSPs sooner, or we would be left with a huge tax bill when we pass away. And so if you have a large balance in your RSP, or it would probably be a RIF at that point, when you pass away, when the last spouse passes away, 50% of that balance becomes taxable. So you lose half of that to tax right away. And once I had that realization, it's like, oh, because you tend to think, let's keep money in the RSP because it can grow tax free, but you have this big tax bomb at the end of your life. So if you don't draw it out sooner, then you're going to have problems later on with taxes. So the spreadsheet helps with that balance. You can't draw it all out at once, but you can spread it out over time. The spreadsheet will show you how you can do that to minimize your taxes.
And how did you come to that conclusion? Like, did you have to run many scenarios, like try and test things out, or was it done by your optimizers?
Yeah, so the spreadsheet has some coding in there, some optimizers. And what they will do is they look at your net estate value. So your net estate value is when it's all said and done, everything you own is sold, all your debts are paid, all your taxes are paid, and that's the money that's left over that would go to your heirs or to charity or wherever you've willed it. We want to maximize that number. First of all, you might want to maximize it so you can look at, well, how much more can I spend during retirement and draw that number down? Or you might want to maximize it because you want to have a significant bequest. But anyways, what the optimizer does is it plays with a bunch of numbers. So your CPP and OAS starting ages, and then how quickly you're drawing down your registered retirement accounts, which could involve RSPs, RIFs, or some people even have LIFs. And it just simply plugs numbers in, trying to maximize this net estate value. Runs for about a minute, then you get the optimized projection that it puts out.
Right. So, Mark, you have also a special role at Retirement Loop. You are a retirement coach, and just to make it clear, you are not there to tell people what to do or to do the work for them. However, you answer like many questions and you help them review their results. You have received excellent feedback from members. Like, you might not know this, listeners, but Mark is like a rock star at Retirement Loop. But I'm wondering, what are the most recurrent mistakes people make with their projections?
So yes, I certainly do help Retirement Loop members use the projection tool to its full potential. And I love those discussions. Typically would spend an hour one-on-one in a video chat with somebody, just hearing about their story and trying to find ways that we can make the retirement spreadsheet work for them and help solve their problems and what they're trying to do. So with respect to using the projections tool, I tell people that they're used to driving a Chevy and now we're putting them in a Formula One race car. And there's all kinds of dials and levers and gauges. And by the way, don't step on the gas too hard or you'll spin out. We're putting a lot of power in people's hands.
Right.
But, for a detailed projection, you need detailed input. And I've taken great effort to document each field that users need to enter. That's not helpful if you don't read the descriptions. So I encourage people to take their time with the spreadsheet, read and follow the instructions carefully. This is not a 5-minute thing. Bring the spreadsheet up and plug your numbers in. You're going to be several hours, if not a couple days, collecting the right information. But once you do that, you'll get a projection that has some value.
Right. And this is why we tell people at Retirement Loop that we've built this community with a 12-month plan in mind, because it does take a lot of time, not only for the projection sheet, but also everything that surround retirement. We will talk about like insurance, investment, preparing your portfolio for withdrawals, all of that stuff. So this is why, like you've said before, if you can start early, just do it and you will adjust over time. But for sure, it makes a huge difference if you have time ahead of you to be patient and test things out.
Yeah.
Listeners, let's empower you in the investment world with our free dividend rockstar list, which includes stock ideas with positive dividend triangles. How does the list help investors, Mike?
Vero, we survey regularly our members and our readers. and we asked them what are their biggest struggle. And one that keeps coming back is really the buy struggle. Most investors don't know what to buy, they don't know when to buy it, and the Rockstar list will help them grow a little bit more their conviction, because that list of stock will just include companies that show great financial metrics. Of course, you cannot start by picking them blindly, but it's a pretty good start to make sure that the company that you're about to read and know their business model is actually a business showing revenue growth, earnings growth, and dividend growth. The way I use it usually is I will filter it by sector to identify a sector that I want to have more exposure to, and then I just look for companies that have the strongest dividend growth model.
To download the list, enter your name and email at thedividendguyblog.com/rockstar. Again, hit pause now and go to thedividendguyblog.com/rockstar. I have heard you, Mark, and also Mike say many, many times to loopers that we should retire every year. So what does it mean and why is it so important?
I would like you to imagine that you're taking a multi-day road trip across Canada. And so on day one, you enter the destination, your final destination in your GPS, and you set out. And perhaps on that day one, there are some detours, and maybe you find this really great place for a scenic hike. So you stop and you do that. And then on day two, you don't continue with the day one plan. Your GPS replans the route based on where you ended up at the end of day one. And so retirement planning is kind of the same. Your spending and investment returns will vary from what you estimated on day one. And you might even have a change in your life circumstances. So you don't continue with the plan that you started with on day one. You redo your plan every year. And that's what we mean by retire every year.
And sometimes it's not going to change much, but at least you'll be reassured, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so in summary, Mark, why should we use a projection tool to get ready for retirement?
For two reasons. The first is to gain confidence that you're going to have enough to live on going forward. And then once you know what enough is, you can use the extra to fund things that are important to you. Different for each person, right?
Right. And because we have time, I would like to go back to your volunteer work, Mark. Let's just talk about that. What are you doing? What's your passion? What resonates with you?
I think we have a huge number of people in the retirement community with excellent skills and experience that they've developed through their careers. I think it's wonderful when you can reach a point where you don't have to charge for that. And so I've had an opportunity to use my IT skills in a few ways. There's a local charity that I work with that is called Cycling Without Age, Lanark County, and they use special three-wheeled e-bikes to take seniors from seniors' homes out for bike rides.
Wow.
So there's an experienced cyclist pilot, and then the senior sits in a compartment in the front of the cycle. And they just needed some help with a website, a little bit of help getting a Facebook presence up. And now other people are managing that, but I just helped them get started there, and that's been a huge boost to that program.
Great.
Another really huge thing, actually a 3-month volunteer opportunity that my wife and I did with an organization called Mercy Ships, which provides free surgeries to people in Africa. The ship that we were on is the world's largest civilian hospital ship. Had 6 operating theaters on board and a crew of 650 when they were fully staffed. And so you can imagine there's a lot of computers on a boat like that. And so they needed volunteers to come on and assist with IT tasks on board. And my wife worked in hospitality. It's all volunteer staff, so there's always people coming and going, and they need a tour of this ship with 12 decks on it and help getting around and orientation. That was 3 months of our life, and just a wonderful experience, and a privilege to be able to give our skills back in that way.
Wow. I love it. I just love it. And how did you get to find that sense of purpose at retirement? Did you do volunteer work from the beginning, or did it evolve over time?
My career was pretty busy and pretty involved. As we said, there wasn't a whole lot of time for extras. When we did retire, all of a sudden I had a lot of time on my hands. And I started by contacting our local food bank. And I do volunteer on Mondays at our local food bank, picking up extra produce from grocery stores and bringing it to the food bank, and then also working with clients to help them make their food selections. And so that's a really nice change. I've managed people all my life, so I just go there as a volunteer. They tell me what to do, I do it. And I have a feeling of satisfaction that I've done something well, and then I come home. If I can't make it in, I just call them, and they'll find another volunteer.
Right.
So that's a case where I almost use different skills than I had during my career. Just, they say change is better than arrest sometimes. And so I've enjoyed doing that as well. And then once I got involved there, other opportunities just came. We've always really felt that we've been blessed to live in Canada. We're very, very fortunate, as are most retirement loop members as well, and we can give a little bit back in appreciation for what we've been given.
So it started with like a small thing, and then it evolved, and you grew the interest into doing more of that, right?
Yeah, the Mercy Chefs actually came right at the end of COVID, and I was obviously going stir crazy being in the house. And I remember opening my Facebook feed one day and seeing advertisement for this opportunity. And I talked to a few people and found a few who had gone and thought, hey, we can do this. And so that was a big step for us, but hugely, hugely fulfilling, and some tremendous, tremendous memories from that.
Wow. I feel like we could go on like for hours. I would definitely enjoy having a beer or a glass of wine with you, Mark. So much interesting and inspiring to a future retiree like me. Again, listeners, you can access the Retirement Loop projection tool by joining our community. Doors should reopen by the end of the year, so be sure to join our waitlist at retirementloop.ca/waitlist to stay informed and receive exclusive offers. I could talk about Retirement Loop for hours. That's another topic that I can keep on going because I just love the people there, like Mark, and all the tools that we've built to help you retire with confidence. But I'll just let Mark tell you what he likes about it.
Yes, well, the projections tool is certainly a big part of Retirement Loop, and it's wonderful to be part of a supportive community that are all working through not just their retirement projections, but working through their retirement as well, figuring out what it's all about. But Retirement Loop is a lot more than just projections. There's practical advice and discussions on lots of different financial and non-financial topics. And I just like to highlight a new channel that's just started that deals specifically with travel. We had a kickoff webinar a couple of weeks ago, and wow, just what an interesting discussion. Lots and lots of tips there. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing where this new channel is going to go.
Yeah. By the way, if they listen, thanks to Colin, Dylan, Kevin, and also Mike, 4 very different travelers, but made the discussion so interesting. So yeah, I'm waiting to get more from that channel too, Mark. I thought it was just so nice. Well, thank you so much again for accepting the invite, Mark. I hope that you have enjoyed it as much as I did.
For sure.
So maybe we'll do like a follow-up in a couple of months. Listeners, this episode has given you many guidelines to help you get started on your retirement plan. To get our 20 income-focused products review and join Retirement Loop's waitlist, visit retirementloop.ca/waitlist. For our show notes and related content, visit thedividendguyblog.com/242. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit pause and click the subscribe button underneath our logo to avoid missing any episodes. If you'd like to appear on the show, message me on the Dividend Guy blog Facebook page or at The Dividend Guy on X. Now till next week, stay invested.
Hey fellow investors, it's Mike here. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Please note that the Dividend Guy blog podcast is at no time issuing buy or sell recommendation. Please do your own due diligence as this podcast is recorded for information and hopefully fun purposes only. Make your research, make sure you do your stuff. We're not responsible for your losses or your profit after listening to this episode. And until next one, stay invested.